When you click Buy on an ETF, you probably did not create a new ETF share. Most of the time, you bought an existing share from another investor on an exchange. But behind that simple click, there is a separate wholesale machine that can create or remove ETF shares in giant blocks. And once you understand that machine, words like NAV, premium, discount, spread, and liquidity start to make a lot more sense. Welcome to Grow with Tony, simple money lessons for education only, not financial advice. Today, we are talking about ETF creation units, which sounds like one of those terms designed to make normal people close the browser tab. But stay with me, because this is not just trivia for market professionals. This is the hidden machine behind every ETF. If you do not know it exists, you can end up with the wrong picture of how ETFs work. You might think ETF shares are created every time someone buys. You might think low trading volume automatically means an ETF is impossible to trade. Or you might think an ETF price is supposed to match its underlying value perfectly every second of the day. None of those mental models is quite right. The better picture is this: an ETF has two doors. The front door is the one you and I usually see. That is the stock exchange. You open your brokerage app, type in a ticker, place an order, and buy or sell ETF shares with other investors. That is called the secondary market. The back door is the one most regular investors never use. That is the primary market, where large financial institutions called authorized participants can deal directly with the ETF. They do not usually create or redeem one ETF share at a time. They work in large blocks called creation units. That is the part hidden behind the ticker. The ETF feels simple because the front door is simple. But the back door is where the supply of ETF shares can expand or contract. And that is the part that makes an ETF different from an ordinary company stock. If you buy one share of a normal company, you are buying a piece of a fixed share structure, at least in the normal day-to-day market. Your order does not make the company issue a brand new share just for you. With an ETF, your normal retail trade also usually does not create a new share. You are still buying from another seller on the exchange. But if demand builds, or if the ETF's market price moves far enough away from the value of the fund's underlying holdings, that backdoor mechanism can matter. This is where authorized participants come in. An authorized participant, often shortened to AP, is usually a large broker-dealer or financial institution that has an agreement allowing it to place creation and redemption orders with the ETF. Regular investors normally do not call up the ETF and say, "Hello, I would like to redeem my 3 shares for a tiny slice of Apple, Microsoft Treasury bills, and whatever else is inside the fund." That is not how this works. Retail investors trade ETF shares on the exchange. APs can interact directly with the ETF in creation units. Think of it like a store. Customers walk into the front of the store and buy individual items from the shelf. But behind the store, there is a loading dock. Big trucks bring in boxes. Big trucks take boxes out. The store can look simple from the front because a much larger inventory system is working in the back. That is roughly the mental model for an ETF. The ticker is the storefront. Creation units are the loading dock. A creation unit is a large block of ETF shares used in direct transactions with the ETF. The SEC Investor Guide gives 50,000 ETF shares as an example of a creation unit block. That does not mean every ETF creation unit is always exactly 50,000 shares. The size can vary. The point is that this is a wholesale-sized transaction, not a normal retail exchange trade. So how does creation work? Imagine an ETF that holds a basket of securities. In real life, that basket can include securities, cash, and sometimes other assets or adjustments depending on the ETF and its rules. The AP delivers the required basket to the ETF. In exchange, the ETF issues a large block of ETF shares to the AP. Those ETF shares can then move into the secondary market, where investors can buy and sell them on an exchange. That is creation. Basket goes in. ETF shares come out. Now flip it around. If the AP wants to redeem, it gathers enough ETF shares to make a creation unit and returns those shares to the ETF. The ETF gives back the redemption basket. That is redemption. ETF shares go in. Basket comes out. This is why ETF supply is flexible. New ETF shares can be created when the market needs more supply. Existing ETF shares can be redeemed when supply needs to shrink. And this is where NAV, premiums and discounts, enter the story. NAV stands for net asset value. In simple terms, NAV is the value of the ETF's underlying holdings, minus liabilities, divided across the ETF shares. But ETF shares trade during the day on an exchange, so they have a market price too. Sometimes the market price is above the value of the underlying holdings. That is a premium. Sometimes the market price is below the value of the underlying holdings. That is a discount. For a simple example, imagine the basket behind an ETF is worth about $100 per share equivalent. If the ETF is trading at $101, it is trading above that underlying value. If it is trading at $99, it is trading below that underlying value. Now, do not get too attached to those numbers. They are only an illustration. The important question is this: if ETF prices can move away from the value of the holdings, why do many ETFs usually trade fairly close to that value? This is where the hidden machine earns its paycheck. If an ETF is trading at a meaningful premium, APs and other market participants may see an opportunity. In simplified terms, if ETF shares are expensive compared with the basket, the AP may be able to deliver the basket to the ETF, receive new ETF shares, and sell those ETF shares into the market. That new supply can help push the ETF price back toward the value of the underlying holdings. If an ETF is trading at a meaningful discount, the flow can work the other way. Market participants may buy the cheaper ETF shares, and AP may redeem a creation unit with the ETF and receive the underlying basket. That removes ETF shares from the market and can help pull the ETF price closer to the value of the assets inside. Notice the words I am using here: may, can, help, and closer. This is not magic. This is not a promise that every ETF trades perfectly at NAV every second. This is not risk-free money sitting on the sidewalk. There are transaction costs. There are spreads. There is timing. There is market stress. There are underlying assets that may be easy or hard to trade. And APs are not superheroes forced to fix every price gap immediately. But the mechanism matters because it creates an incentive system. ETF price discipline is not magic. It is a supply valve with incentives. That is the line I want you to remember. A normal investor sees one ticker, but under that ticker, the ETF has a way for supply to adjust. If there is too much demand and the ETF price rises above the value of the basket, creation can add supply. If there is too little demand and the ETF price falls below the value of the basket, redemption can remove supply. That supply valve is one reason many ETFs can trade close to the value of what they own. But it is still a mechanism with limits. And this is where the lesson becomes practical for regular investors. First, do not assume the ETF market price is always exactly the same as NAV. Most ETF sponsors provide premium and discount information. For many plain vanilla ETFs, the gap may often be small. But the fact that premium and discount data exists tells you something important. The gap can exist. So if you are buying or selling an ETF, especially one with less common holdings, international exposure, bonds, or markets that may not be trading at the same time, it is worth knowing that market price and underlying value are related but not identical. Second, do not judge ETF liquidity only by the trading volume you see on the screen. This is a common beginner mistake. People look at two ETFs. One trades millions of shares a day, another trades far fewer shares, and they assume the second one must be completely illiquid. Volume matters. I am not saying to ignore it, but with ETFs, visible volume is not the whole story. Because ETF shares can be created and redeemed, the liquidity of the underlying basket matters too. If the ETF holds very liquid securities, APs and market makers may be able to create or redeem shares when needed, even if the ETF itself does not show huge trading volume every day. On the other hand, if the ETF holds assets that are hard to trade, or if the market is stressed, the machine may not work as smoothly as it does in a calm textbook example. So the smarter question is not only how many ETF shares traded today, the better question is how easy is it to trade what this ETF owns, and what does the spread look like right now? Third, pay attention to bid-ask spread. The bid is what buyers are willing to pay. The ask is what sellers are willing to accept. The spread is the gap between them. For a very liquid ETF in calm markets, that spread may be tiny. For a less liquid ETF, or during messy trading, the spread can widen. That can become a real trading cost. This is why patient order behavior matters. You do not need to become a professional trader. But if the spread is wide, the market is chaotic, or the ETF holds assets that are not trading normally, it is worth slowing down and understanding the price you are actually accepting. Fourth, respect the limits of the machine. A lot of ETF education accidentally makes the creation and redemption process sound like a perfect autopilot system. It is not. It is an incentive system. When the trade is attractive enough after costs and risks, market participants have a reason to step in. But if the underlying market is stressed, if the basket is hard to price, if trading costs are high, or if the gap is not worth capturing, the price can deviate. That does not automatically mean the ETF is broken. Sometimes the ETF is simply showing you, in real time, that the underlying market is messy. This is especially important with bond ETFs, international ETFs, or niche strategies, where the holdings may not trade as cleanly as large U.S. stocks. Again, that is not a recommendation for or against any specific fund. It is just the right mental model. The ETF is not a magical wrapper that removes market reality. It is a wrapper with a mechanism that often helps the market connect the trading price to the value of the underlying holdings. Now, let me give you a simple 3-line audit you can use the next time you look at an ETF. Line 1, I trade this ETF through the front door, so I should know the market price and the spread. Line 2, this ETF has a back door, so visible trading volume is not the whole liquidity story. Line 3, the back door helps price discipline, but it does not remove risk. That is the whole practical takeaway. You do not need to know every legal definition inside the ETF rulebook. You do not need to memorize every AP relationship. You do not need to treat every premium or discount like an emergency. But you should know that the ETF you buy on a brokerage screen has more going on than a ticker and a price chart. There is a front door where ordinary investors trade shares. There is a back door where authorized participants can create or redeem large blocks. There is a basket, which is the stuff that moves through that back door. There is a creation unit, which is the bulk size of the transaction. And there is an incentive system that can help pull market price and underlying value closer together, without guaranteeing perfection. That is why ETFs can feel so simple from the outside. The complexity is not gone. It is organized behind the scenes. So the next time someone says an ETF is just like a stock, you can say, it trades like a stock, but it is not built like a stock. The ticker is the storefront. Creation units are the loading dock, and the hidden machine behind every ETF is what lets that simple little ticker behave like a flexible fund wrapper, not just another share floating around the market. If one ETF term confused you the most before this video, comment with that term below. NAV, AP, spread, premium, discount, creation unit. Any of them. And if you want more simple money lessons without the finance fog, subscribe to Grow with Tony. Keep learning, keep growing your wealth, and I will see you in the next one.